Bom, então, obrigada por voltarem. A Jane vai liderar essa sessão. Ela está falando direto do Paquistão, de Islamabad. E nessa sessão nós vamos conversar um pouco mais sobre os planos de ação, e como a gente pode começar, tipo, o processo de trabalhar nos planos de ação.
And it's great to get an opportunity to share with you more about what we've heard this morning, which is around the new Women in Science Award call. Very important opportunity for you all here today.
Uma oportunidade muito interessante que a
Vocês
gente pode
muito bom
escutar
ter a
hoje.
oportunidade de conversar um pouco mais sobre o trabalho que vocês têm feito e sobre a chamada do Prêmio
No teste.
Mulheres da Ciência, sobre o qual a gente escutou hoje mais cedo.
So this session is to help you take everything that we've heard today, and I'm going to share more about it, and turn it into practical, achievable actions for you.
Vamos pensar em metas que são atingíveis e vamos ajudar vocês a definir
gender equality and inclusion within your institution.
A ideia dessa sessão é ser realmente muito prática. O que a gente vai fazer é tentar ajudar, né, no processo de encontrar os objetivos e as ações que precisam ser elaboradas para os planos de ação das suas instituições.
And we have a quick few housekeeping.
I'm very sorry, Jane. Can I just jump in? Yes. And can I ask, if you are receiving the translation in Portuguese in the interpretation button, please can you just give us a thumbs up? I think it may be working. Yay!
Oh, yay! That's brilliant. There you
go. Need you to translate, Adalgisa. You can breathe, Adalgisa. Well done.
It may be just a reminder to everyone to click on to that button if there's a problem. Just if you could just say that would be great, and then you can stop having to repeat me.
Então, se você precisa de tradução,
So if you need translation, it is necessary to click on the button that there are the versions, and in case you have any problems with that, you can write down in the chat box and we can help you. I'm so sorry for the translation.
And thank you, Lisa, for letting us know that it's all clear. So just a few housekeeping bits for us. Just to keep phones on silent. The safeguarding is a key priority for those of you that were with us this morning. You'll have heard about the importance of making sure that we keep everyone safe and that we don't enable anyone to come in a way that we wouldn't want to see. So safeguarding is a really important priority. And if anybody has any concerns, please pop in the chat, raise it. And of course, you can communicate. You'll see Marcella's email address at the bottom of the slide. So please do feel free to let us know if that's the case. So we're going to get going on our first activity, and we're going to review the actual Women in Science Award call, which is really important for us here. So we know that many of you are familiar with the award. It celebrates institutions driving gender equality in higher education, but particularly in research. And in this morning's session, we heard so much about the challenges that we're experiencing and seeing, but also the opportunities and good practice. And that's what we want to really build on today for yourselves. We're really hoping that several of you will win that award in the coming months, having put your application
no
in.
mês que vem.
So important to know.
Então é importante saber que a aplicação agora
weeks ago, and what we're going to do is just take a few minutes to go back over the main points, the eligibility application process and the key dates. And there's going to be a summary, a printed summary of the award call for those that are desk-based, but we're going to send it to you electronically, probably, and I'm looking at Lucy, who's active online. I think you're probably going to pop it in the chat I would imagine, for
Going
everyone.
to pop the link to it in the chat as well as the downloaded
Fantastic.
access, and we'll email it to you afterwards as well.
Brilliant, thank you. So some important points. You actually do and could win some money to support your institution in strengthening and implementing gender equality initiatives. That's a really important component when we know that some of your infrastructures are quite tight, the funding is not always there. This would help you to get started, and therefore, whilst it's not going to be everything, it's going to be an important component to say that funding is available for you. The award is really about promoting that international collaboration by aligning with the British Council's gender equality framework, giving visibility and recognition. And one of the things that we explored this morning was the importance of connecting internationally. This is about raising the bar for women across the world, and Brazil, with the number of universities and the size of the country, is a really important part of Latin America and indeed the world. So we really want to see Brazil to excel in this area and this way. And then the other aspect to note is that the applications must be submitted through the CNPq eFomento platform. You're going to have all of that detail in the chat, the link. And what you'll need for that proposal is a written proposal, an institutional action plan. And that's a really important point here. This is not about writing huge documents. This is about being really clear and precise about what you can do. So this is not about having pages and pages of what you would look to do in the future. It's about being really succinct. So that's really important. And Lucy's now just posted in the chat how you access the information. It'll also need a letter of commitment from your rector. So very important, or your dean, you will need to have that letter of commitment for putting forward this action plan. So again, really important. Now, we are on a countdown. The deadline is the 24th of November, with results in February and an award ceremony in March 26. So it's really important. You have just around 2 weeks to do that. So in this activity this afternoon, we want to get you started. We want to get you thinking about how and what you might put into your action plan and your proposal. Now, thinking about how your institution's ongoing initiatives align with these priorities, let's just open up the chat in the room. How many of your institutions have applied before? Did any of you put forward an application? And just a hands up, it'd be really interesting. No, so I can see that we're getting some shakes of head. Thank you for saying so. Anyone, let's do it the other way. Who has put in, who hasn't put in an application? So just stick your hands up, just so that I know you're all live and you're here in the room with us. So yeah, okay, thank you, Olivia, that's good. Yeah, there we are, Lisa. Yeah, all the hands coming up. So, okay, so this is new. So this is going to be really, hopefully, an interesting discussion. So in terms of what benefits or changes can come from participating, I think what we're going to do is just open up the chat and just think about what could be, what benefits do you think you might secure for your institution by participating? And it was just to say, it was really interesting hearing from the awardees for last year. We actually captured a lot of benefits when we met with them individually. There were a raft of benefits that had featured due to the fact that the award had been won. So please, let's open up the floor and just start thinking about the benefits. And anyone can start the conversation. Don't be shy.
Feel free to unmute yourselves and jump in. You're more than welcome, or raise your hand, however you'd like. In this workshop, it's a lot more fluid, and you have got access to chat and microphones.
So please do. Just your thoughts. What are the types of benefits you'd hope to see from this? Ah, there we are. Renata, do you want to come in? You can take yourself off of mute. That's it.
Yes. In my institution, can I speak in Portuguese and
yes, absolutely.
You translate for me?
Yeah, good.
Okay. Na minha instituição,
In my institution,
eu gostaria de ter
I would like to have
uma sessão de mentoria para
a mentoring session of leadership to my students, female students, since I am from a university that came from an engineering school, so our courses are mostly male-based, and I would like to have this secure to my students, my female students. I would like to provide them support, and I would like to see more projects being done for women. We had that in the previous management. We had a female dean, and I would like to see that happening. More support and more works with their emotional, because they are inserted in such a male environment, and I would like to see this. And I am from Minas Gerais in Brazil.
Excellent. That's really set the scene, Renata. Two really good points there. One about the women mentoring. I agree with you completely. I think that's such an important factor, that providing that ongoing support for students. We've seen it work really effectively in other parts of the world, especially in industries that are not traditional. And I like that idea of kind of more projects, more initiatives that get women thinking about potentially getting those leadership posts. So really, really important. Thank you. Let's see who else would like to join the conversation.
Olá,
Olá.
eu me chamo Olivia Medeiros Neta, sou da Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Norte, e para nossa instituição nós desejamos fomento a projetos sobre inclusão, acessibilidade e diversidade, bem como fomento para projetos para mães na iniciação científica.
Research.
Excellent. So I'm just going to ask the translator to speak again, because it was really quiet. If you could just repeat again. Thank you.
Eu posso repetir, sim. Eu sou da Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Norte.
I'm from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte. My name is Olivia,
Desejando fomento para
and we're desiring to foster two specific actions. One in the area of inclusion, accessibility, and diversity,
uma outra ação para
and another action
mães na
to
iniciação científica durante a
foster
graduação.
more mothers in scientific researchers during graduation.
Gosh, they're two really rich, again, conversations and thoughts there. I think the idea around the inclusion, accessibility and diversity, that's really broad. So one of the things, Olivia, is what would success look like? And we might come to that a little bit later, unless you've got some idea to show and put onto the table now. Otherwise, we'll come back to that. But what would success look like there? So I don't know whether there we are, Olivia, you're back in.
Sim, sim. O nosso desejo é ampliar.
Yes,
O desejo é
just a
ampliar
moment.
a permanência de alunos da graduação
We
na universidade.
wish to
Proporcionar
foster
que esses
that
alunos
students keep themselves
tenham
in the university.
deficiência ou mesmo em condição de vulnerabilidade
It can
tenham
be a student
experiências
with a certain disability
ao longo
or in a
da
vulnerable
graduação.
situation.
Então,
We
nós
want
tivemos
these
já
people
dois
to have
dois
researches during their
editais para
graduation also.
esses alunos
So
de
we had 2
inclusão, um
notices for
mães
these
na iniciação
students,
científica, e
and
também
another one
estamos
related to moms in
organizando ações
scientific
para que
innovation.
as mães
And
pesquisadoras
we're
tenham mais
organizing
condição
action
de
so that these
permanência, de
mothers can have more
concorrência em
conditions of
algumas áreas, como as áreas da
maintaining
medicina e da
themselves and
saúde,
competing in certain areas like
nessa
engineering and
perspectiva de
healthcare.
ampliar a
And I think
diversidade
it would be under that
e
perspective
a
of widening
acessibilidade e
diversity and
garantir que grupos
accessibility
mais
and
vulneráveis tenham acesso
guarantee
à
that more
pesquisa,
vulnerable
principalmente
groups
e
have
por extensão
access
a
to
permanência
research,
na universidade.
especially through an extension and maintaining themselves inside the university.
That's really interesting, Olivia. And as you say, it's almost attracting people as they're going through the university from a student's perspective, and really encouraging people to stay in the sciences, in the research area. So really, really interesting concept there. Do we have anyone else that would like to throw in? We've got some really good points already here, but would anybody else like to come in?
There's a comment in the chat.
Good. Do you want to share it?
It's about it's from Lizzie Milepi. It would be nice to have networking opportunities and the chance to develop female leadership.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point. I was at the the British Council Going Global event in the UK, and there were a lot of individuals from Latin America there. And that was a really common theme in one of the workshops that I was on the panel. And that was the request. Let's make sure there's networking opportunities for women to come together and share best practice. So I think that's, again, how might you build that into your action plan? So really, really good thoughts there around that. So let's see if we've got anyone else that would like to come in now. If not, I'm going to just talk. So I'm just looking to see. Hands up. Please don't be shy. No wrong thought, no wrong point. Okay. I think no one at the moment. So let's move on to, let's think about setting objectives then, because I think we've got some really interesting actions here. How are you going to set objectives against those though? And I think the ones that we've got there, mentoring, having more projects that really focus on women in leadership roles within the institutions, another around networking, and then 2 more, one around inclusion, accessibility, diversity, and fostering and supporting more mothers into the role. And again, really important factors. So let's start thinking about how are you going to do that? So Lucy, if we can go to our next slides, let's start thinking about I'll jump let's go to this slide first. That's it. So setting objectives, there's a couple of things to think about. Being practical around how many objectives you can genuinely undertake. So sometimes less is more. Having fewer but very clear objectives, very clear goals is better. You have to start somewhere. And if we go back to Gary's point, if you were on the call this morning, it's a journey. You can't achieve everything overnight, but what you can do is make one step forward. And that's what we're really interested in here. So let's look at setting objectives. So Lucy, next slide. That's it. And the next one. Okay, so when I first started in industry, and I worked in industry and then into education, one of the things that we were always taught, and I don't think it's ever gone out of fashion, is the SMART model, setting SMART goals. And I'm sure you're all very comfortable with these anyway, but let's just think about it. SMART being really specific. So when we look at the objectives and the actions, what do we want to achieve from it? And I always think that when you're being specific, it means you're very
Quando você
clear of
está
what the
sendo
outcomes and the
específico, quer dizer que
output is going to be. So it's almost like starting backwards. What do you want to see at the end, and how does that relate into a very specific goal? And then measurable. How will you know when you've achieved it is, again, really, really important component. Really thinking about what will success look like? So if we were to pick the networking for females, then you might set an objective to work with a number of institutions, and to measure the success rates of those women in the workplace. So there's a number of things that you might consider in measuring the success of that, and we can come to that in a moment. Attainable. Make sure it's achievable, that you're not over pushing yourselves. If you haven't got the resource to do everything you want to do, think about the things that matter most. And if you win the award, what could that money be used for, to spend to give you that opportunity to really move forward in achieving that goal? But one of the things that I would say to you now is there will be 3 awardees. However, there are more organisations than 3 on this call. You can all put in an amazing proposal for sure. But for those of you that aren't successful, you should look at this as an opportunity of setting out what you intend to do. So not just reliant on winning the award, but really thinking about, this is something that is not about accessing money, but it's about making change. So starting to think of it slightly differently and thinking of how you might make that change, even if the money wasn't there. And of course, for some of you, that's going to be the added bonus of it. So making your goals attainable, making them realistic, and making sure that you have the resources to actually undertake that, and commitment. And relevance. One of the things that is challenging, and in Brazil in particular, with the number of female deans, for example, which we know is very, very low, and the amount of opportunity to make changes there, but thinking about what's relevant for your business, your institution. Now, the awardees from last year had very different action plans, and they also started in a very different place. Some had been working on their gender inclusion aspect for over 10 years. Others were much newer at that stage, but had a very clear plan of what they needed to address. So really thinking about, does this meet your organizational's needs, and does it align with the plan of your business? So making sure it's really relevant is important. And then time-based, because when you're putting an action plan, you need to be able to measure it and be sure that you're going to be able to achieve it in the time frame that you have given yourself. Now, we know that times change, that something happens and something becomes, it takes longer to undertake. So be really realistic with yourself. And I have a bit of a rule when I'm writing a plan. I always say how long I think it's going to take, and then I add at least a 20% more on time, because of different eventualities that you can't anticipate at this point. So just being really realistic is really important. Okay, so let's start thinking about how you're going to go about this. How are you going to connect this to the award? Because this is the plan. You know, some of you on this call are going to be winners of this award, and it's a really prestigious award. And certainly some of the awardees, one of the awardees from last year won an additional award, partly on the back of all the work they'd done and the action plan that they'd set. So this could be really a way of highlighting your university, your institution as being best in class and attracting more women to enter into the sciences. So link your action plan to the awards requirements, and you have some tools to help you. So you have the British Council Gender Equality Framework. It's there and available for you to access. And I think, Lucy, I'm right in saying we've got some links to this as a tool.
That's correct.
As well.
They're in the chat. Absolutely.
They're in the chat, honestly. You're super, Lucy. You always are 2 steps ahead of me. So thank you for that. So when you're putting your action plan, you've got the link to the award. You've got links to the British Council Gender Equality Framework to help you consider and think about how you're going to put this in place and how your plan meets the objectives of the award and also aligns to the British Council Gender Equality Framework, which might well help you when you're building your actions. So what I'd like to do now is start thinking about examples of practical objectives. Now, there are lots of different ones, but I've got just a few for us to think about. Increasing women's participation in STEM research by 20% over 2 years. It's very specific. It gives a target and it says how long it's going to take to do it. And you'll know at the end, you'll be able to measure that. So it's very measurable. And so that doesn't mean that's a perfect one. That's not the one that you necessarily would choose, but it's an example of how you might think about your actions. The next one is developing and implementing a gender-sensitive recruitment policy by the end of 2025. I don't expect you to do that. You're writing your plan now. Some of you may have it in your institution, others might not. But if you are looking to do that, then think about how long might it take you to do it? Who might you need to go through? Would the board need to agree it? Obviously, you've got your senior directors, your dean, your rector that are going to have to sign that off. It might be that it needs to align with local government. There are a number of things that you might need to consider in a proposal like that. So think deeply about what it is, what policies you might need to put in place, and whether they are policy change or they start off as a commitment for change that moves to a policy later down the line. So think about that carefully. And then establish a gender equality committee by March 2026. Now, that could be a really useful start, and you might do that before creating a gender-sensitive recruitment policy. So think about the steps, and you might have in your action plan 2 or 3 really strong actions. There may be some sub-actions that come out of that. Now I'm going to just stop because we've got Adalgisa on the call, and Adalgisa, you may have some thoughts around these or some thinking of experience that you've had in setting practical objectives. So not wanting to put you on the spot, do you go ahead?
Bom, acho que a gente pode, quando a gente fala estabelecer objetivos,
when we're talking about establishing
a
objectives,
gente tem caminho interessante, né? De
we
olhar
have an
para os dados que a gente tem
interesting
disponíveis,
path
né, dentro da
when
nossa
we're
instituição,
talking
para a gente
about looking
entender
towards the data that we have
da
available,
nossa situação
for us to
e
be
a
able to
partir daí
understand our
pensar
situation,
objetivos,
and
né, que
from
são
there
smart,
think the
atingíveis,
objectives that we
que
can
são
reach
acionáveis,
that we can put in practice. And we also have like some kind of tools that go beyond the institution. And it's important for us to have a diagnosis of our institution, but like we said in the morning, like Ufi said, university is part of society. And our university is inserted in a certain context. And we have data beyond the university that reflect our problems, and understanding our problems, we're able to think about practical objectives. So inside this society and these problems that we have, and they're also inside universities, what are the objectives that we need? And I think that is really interesting. And from there, we can start thinking in practical objectives or goals that were discussed here already, and many universities have thought about maternity and parents acting on top of this issue about responsibilizing mothers for care, and how can we involve men in this process and also universities in this. Remember, Brazil has for the first time a national policy of care, and it calls everybody to act upon the problem of overweighted care on top of women. So what practical goals or objectives that we can have to reach this national policy of care? Why not think outside of the university and inside our reality? So I would call and invite everybody to look towards these issues and look towards society and understand that it's inserted in this context.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adalgisa. That gives a new, another perspective to really think about and concentrate on when you're planning your objectives. So thank you for that. So let's just start thinking about some of the common pitfalls that we might want to avoid. So it's a really interesting one. I think the problem is we all have day jobs. We're all busy doing our day job, and actually writing good objectives, smart objectives, is quite difficult sometimes. And sometimes we end up with objectives that are far too vague, they're not measurable, like improve gender equality. Now that, of course, we all want to see that, but what does that really mean? What are the steps you're going to take, and how are you going to measure them? So really thinking about making sure your actions are not too vague. And then when we look at not measurable or without a baseline, so for example, you've got to know where you're starting from. One of my favorite examples was working with a large organization, an international organization in the Middle East, actually. And one of the challenges they faced was that the sector was absolutely non-typical for women, especially Arab women. Wouldn't typically work in the hospitality and tourism industry. So what the organization did was they looked at the policies and the infrastructure that they had, and they created a different method for recruiting. They thought about the words that they were using. They thought about where they were starting from. So they measured where they were. When we started working with them, they were 3% of their workforce were women. They had an aim and an aspiration to reach 15% within a year, and they were under a very high recruitment process at the time. So not every organization could move that quickly, but they had moved to 18% within a year. And that's because they knew where they were to start with. They knew where they wanted to be. And what they created was a different method for recruiting, thinking about making sure the jobs and the opportunities were really attractive to women. And they thought about the issues. So they thought about transport was one of the big problems. The shift pattern for women was another. and also the types of job role that the women could do that would be seen as appropriate by their families was another aspect. So all of those considerations were taken, and they put in place a process for recruitment and training. And it was really satisfying for us to work with them and to see them make these huge changes. And what was even more satisfying was for them to say, well, that's not it. We've got to 18%, but in another year's time, we want to have hit 30%, because again, they were expanding. They had the opportunity for recruitment, and they had that opportunity to make change. So that is what I call measurable, really setting out the stall and knowing where you want to get to. What's that distance traveled? So if we go back to one of the points that was raised earlier, that ability to foster more mothers, for example, into the science, into the research side, that's super measurable. And how are you going to do it? How are you going to attract those women? So what are the steps that you need to take? And is it possible? Will you have the opportunity to recruit? So the company that we worked with knew that they could recruit more people. So therefore, they were in a very positive position, and they could set very high targets around that. You might not be able to make such high targets, but what target is feasible based on the benchmark and your knowledge of how often you are recruiting into different, whether it's students onto program or women into roles within the university. And then thinking unlinked, some of the other common pitfalls, it's unlinked to the institution or the award framework. So you're setting a goal that is not linked to either your own institution's action plans and its own direction with where it's going, and or it's not going to meet the goals of the award. So really think about, is it meeting those two aspects? And then the other is, and again, we've said it, but I don't think it ever hurts to say it more than once, overly ambitious. Make sure that if you only have one or two people that can commit 20% of their time, 40% of their time to this, that you don't overcommit, because all you'll do is exhaust those that are involved in it and take away the passion and commitment that you have. So make it feasible, doable. So really think about the practicalities of putting it into place. And one step at a time, one step forward is amazing. And if you can make those small changes, that's the start, that's the real impact. So that's some thoughts on common pitfalls to avoid. Let's think about now drafting your objectives. So what we hope from this exercise is that we're going to give you some of the tools, some of the thoughts that you might want to think about, and get you to start identifying one priority area for your institution on this agenda. And then to start thinking about the objectives that sit under those. So what we're going to do is we're going to then regroup. So we're going to have group discussion around this, but we're going to give you a few minutes to just think about what it is. Now, to help you with that, you have got, Lucy again has beaten me to it. She's put a document in the table for you that you can download. And it gives you, so I'm just going to, I wonder if we haven't got one up. Let's just, oops, Lucy, there we are.
Would you like me to open one, Jane?
Yes, that would be great. If you could, that would be super.
Can you see that?
Yes, I can. So this is a template to help you set out your actions. Now, you don't have to fill it. The idea isn't that you filled and finished everything tonight or today, this afternoon, this this morning. I don't know where everyone is on their time zone, but let's just say we don't need you to have completed it, but this will help you to formulate your ideas, your objectives, making sure they're smart. If you can scroll along, Lucy, down, that's it. And then thinking about who's going to be responsible, coming back to the resourcing piece. How are you going to make that that possible? And how will you know what success looks like? So really thinking about your success indicators, and then really thinking about your and I'm sorry, my Spanish is failing me right now, but thinking about your reflection on this, thinking about how you're going to be, what challenges, so it is reflection, that, thank you, what challenges might arise, what support you might need, and what next steps might help you after this session. Now, I know that in some ways, around the room today, you might feel like you're going to be in competition with each other. You're all starting at different places. You're all, I'm sure, going to do some amazing action plans. What I'd hope is that after your few minutes thinking about the ideas that you started to share and more ideas, let's come back into the room and start thinking about how those objectives could be made possible. Let's take some examples. So just in terms of getting going, you've got 5 minutes to just take the template, download it from the chat, start to think about what actions and objectives you might like to put in, and then we are going to come back into the room to discuss 1 or 2 of those to help you in your planning. So over to you now. We'll go quiet for a few minutes.
Just to confirm, the breakout rooms are open. Feel free to jump into them and discuss it together if you do want to.
Sorry, Lucy, that's a great idea. How many rooms have you set up? Is there enough for
3 rooms with 9 people in each.
Excellent. Perfect. So yes, do have some joint discussion. Who would like to go first? Who would like to share some of the thoughts they have around priority areas? Now, we've had some, and I might come to Renata because you've got your hand up, and I can see you had 2 really good ones to start with. So do you want to come in with your thoughts?
Oh. Thank you very much, Jane. In our group,
we had so many people that did not come from the university, they are not from the university, and we started to discuss a little bit about what would be our objectives. In this first moment, we do not have how to develop a affirmative policy for the university, but I would like to keep doing what I have already been doing, which is having these leadership mentorings and decision making for my students. And following this reasoning, I don't remember her name, my partner in the group. Please let me know what was your name. Lizzie. So Lizzie, I'm so sorry. So Lizzie also comes from the university. She would like to have this group of mentoring for her students in this area of leadership and decision making.
Excellent. So that's a really good point. So let's take that as an example. And let's think about, where are you today in doing this? So could both of you give me an idea? Have you got in place any mentoring at all for your leaders or your students?
Yes, I have. Eu tenho feito.
Yes, I have been doing a work with an organization that is international, an American one, and an American coach as well. She volunteered to mentor. So the course is called Women in Leadership. This used to be an extension project that I did at university. And it was so interesting because we started the pandemic, we offered it for the whole country. It was very interesting, and we could verify how the girls need the support in decision making. Because when we live in a male world, we are imprinted in order to be following the same reasoning, the same thoughts. Oh, you're so emotional. So this makes us to be always on the same level. And working with this sensation inside the women and teaching them how to make the right decisions in the middle of a conflict, it made such a great difference in our graduation in different sectors as well. And with this, in my institution particularly, I could create a group, Mulheres na Liderança, Women in Leadership, and we have these mentorings. I would bring this to university, this message on how not to be sexist, and also some messages of how to hire a woman, simply hire one. And we would like to offer them scholarships, specifically the ones that were mothers. But when the dean changed, now we don't have these groups anymore. So unfortunately, this mentoring work does not happen anymore. And it was so important for the girls, specifically the ones that wanted to have it.
Excellent. So for me, that's really interesting. So several things you've said there, Renata. One, it's proven to be successful. You did it during the COVID period. It worked really well. You had volunteer mentors for women leadership. However, what I also heard you say is that the new dean hasn't got this as a priority. So you've got a barrier and a challenge. So what could you put in place? What action could you do to reinstate this opportunity that would align to what the university is doing? So how do you get over the barrier that has been created?
Okay, in my case, eu poderia então voltar a fazer
so maybe I could have an individual extension project, maybe, and also keep going with the project normally, as long as the person, the American woman that used to tutor the course, if she volunteered again, it would be okay. So maybe I would just go back to doing these actions as I used to do before. And that's it.
Really, yes, thank you, Renata. So one of the things you might want to consider is that there are leadership groups and there are leadership mentors. So for example, the Institute for Leadership in the UK, well, it's not just a UK organization, they have members all over the world. They have a mentoring program. So I'm a fellow of the Institute for Leadership. I'm a mentor personally for that, not just for women, and in fact, the people that I have mentored so far have all been men. And that's because you can choose, if you are a member of the Institute of Leadership, you can choose who you would like to mentor. So when you talked about volunteers, there are other women out there that could potentially volunteer to give some of their time to mentor someone else. So a good action might be to identify a new network and to use different models of actively seeking mentors from some of your partner institutions as well. So you might want to think slightly differently about that, because you're right, the woman that provided that free mentoring in the past may not have capacity anymore to do that. So definitely worth considering. I think it's a good plan, but to be practical, think about what are the practical steps, how might you access, and to do a little bit of research work on that to identify perhaps new groups, and how many women might you undertake that with. You also mentioned a few other things. You talked about recruitment. And if you want to recruit more women onto programs or as researchers into the university, then there is a whole human resource aspect of writing job descriptions that enable women to think, yes, this might be the place for them, and writing them in a gender positive way is another step you might want to put in as an action, and you might want to set some targets around that. So I don't know, Adalgisa, or if anyone else would like to add in their thoughts, because it's a great aspiration. It's obviously there's been some success in the past. How do you make it live and sustainable? Any other thoughts? And then Lisa, I'd like to come to you.
Né, do recrutamento, né? Essa é uma questão quando a gente fala do Brasil.
Recruitment, when we talk about Brazil, we have this recruitment process, and they are specific inside the universities. And many times the way and the specificities of this process, they are used as an excuse so that they are not very incisive. So the contest and so on, and it's hard to act against discrimination. And the results that we have, they show that these things should be possible. Women do have the possibility to change. And this is an instance that using data is extremely important, because you can see this argument that a public tender has got the capacity of contributing with discrimination. And coming from this data, you can see that it's available everywhere, so you can take a look at this if you want to. And it's possible for us to collect, to analyze, and to try to design something onto it. And another possibility is that we can look a little bit out of the universities, because although in the university we have public tenders, they are still public tenders. So there are decades and decades in different sectors. So maybe you could look at different sectors, different public tenders that maybe have had results that were different, so that we can think about these selective processes. So yes, this is what I say is a big challenge in Brazil. And we need to find a sector that has had results. That's not the point. We're not there yet. But we can have interesting situations in different sectors, you know. So I believe that it's worthy to have this overlook regarding public tenders, not only at university.
Perfect. Thank you, Adalgisa, for adding that in. And I think, Lucy, you've put in a really good comment in the chat that says
not,
in the award call there
it's
are
not
references
actually
to
mine,
the
Jane.
Access Paro or Futuro program. That might be a possible partnership pathway focused on girls and young women, and or to reach out to companies or organizations that have pro bono volunteering programs where employees dedicate a few hours of their time. And I think that is the truth. People like to give back and like to see success. So that might help. But I'd like to, Renata, thank you for starting the conversation off on that. That's really, really helpful. Lisa, I'd like to come to you next because your point was around the students themselves and providing that mentorship for students. What is your thinking around that? What success rate and where are you today on that journey? So I'm just hoping you're still in there, whether you can come in. Yes. So I think it's Lisa Milepi. Is that right? Hello, Lisa.
I have a group. We build rockets in our university.
Rocket?
Yeah, rocket.
Wow, amazing. Yes, that's very exciting.
And our goal is to attract more female students for our group to do research in this area.
Yeah.
And I think the main problem for us, it's in Brazil, we don't have this industry so developed, and we don't find many opportunities, especially for this mentoring, and also for to offer hands-on experience for women. I think male and boys and men in their childhood have opportunity to sometimes learn from their fathers how to do the stuff.
Yes.
And I think that's the facet right now, our problem, that we don't have conditions, equipment, many stuff to support these hands-on experiences for female students. And that is our goal right now, to improve the situation and attracting more female students for our group.
That's really exciting. And I would think that lots of women would be really intrigued with the ability to be researching rockets. I mean, that's our future world, isn't it? Space is such a big part of it. So what do you plan on doing? What actions could you take forward? So you've mentioned a number of challenges. What sort of actions could you and would you want to put in place?
There are many. First of all, to attract female students, because sometimes they are not interested or they are not confident enough to do things with maths, things with coding. I think confidence is a problem for female students in this situation. Sometimes we think we don't know math enough, we don't know how to program enough. So this kind of actions, maybe to offer seminars or to improve these skills.
Yeah.
And sometimes they are not confident to use equipment and that we have in the lab, or I don't know, a 3D print machine, for example.
Yeah.
And I think this to maybe actions to put these students more close to the operations, more close to the hands-on experiences, because we think it helps to build confidence, and it helps to get experience for the future. When these students go to the market and look for jobs, for example, they are more qualified. And I think we are trying to find a way, try to see the possibilities to attract these girls, and it's not so easy. But they document the word document. It's very nice to to give us some tips.
Brilliant. That's a great, I mean, it sounds like you've already got some really, really good ideas. I really like that point about making it very practical. So providing a space where women and girls can come and actually see what it's like to be involved in, like the 3D printing, like in the work, in the labs, etc., to understand exactly what you mean, to make it more realistic for them. And the way that you were describing it, I was imagining, you know, some very action planned workshops running for a series of workshops, perhaps to encourage more students, female students, providing perhaps attracting them through different networks and providing the advertisement for those workshops in a language that feels female driven as well. So I think I like that point about not having had the role models, maybe, you know, and hence women might not see that as a traditional, a place for them to be. So I like your thoughts. I think that in writing that action plan, it'd be quite easy to measure success, because you'd see success of women coming onto program by running workshops, encouraging them that are much more action driven, more experiential. And I think that would be a really interesting action for you to take forward. I'm wondering if anyone else has any thoughts on that, because it's a really interesting idea.
Tem uma sugestão, essas sugestões são realmente muito interessantes e muito importantes. Eu acho que eu sugeriria, além de tudo isso, né, na medida do possível, olhar para outros fatores, que são os fatores que às vezes impedem o acesso à permanência de mulheres de uma maneira mais ampla, né? Eu não conheço exatamente a realidade, né, do seu espaço específico, mas às vezes questões relacionadas ao acesso aos laboratórios, então, como as pessoas chegam e saem, iluminação de estacionamento, segurança, quer dizer, muitas vezes as mulheres deixam de fazer coisas porque não é tão seguro ir e sair de um ambiente, por exemplo, ou questões relacionadas à infraestrutura de cuidado, né? Se tem escola, creche perto. Então, só lembrando que além de tudo isso que é de extrema importância, que são realmente essas skills, né, do trabalho, lembrar de olhar para questões de segurança, de cuidado, né, que muitas vezes são um obstáculo para o acesso às mulheres e acabam não estando nos planos porque né, não são diretamente ligadas a habilidades, né, mas tem a ver com realmente a habilidade, a capacidade de estar nos lugares, né, de permanecer nos lugares.
Brilliant. Thank you, Azordiza, for adding in. It's really helpful to get different views. I wonder if anyone else would like to add
Muito
in
interessante
their
ter
thoughts.
essas visões diferentes. Eu queria saber se mais alguém quer trazer as suas.
Yes, Talita.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Talita. I'm from Federal University of Goiás. Eu sou aqui da Universidade Federal de Goiás. Estou nessa reunião enquanto pessoa e não
I'm from the University of Goiás.
as a person, as myself. I'm not representing the university, but I am someone who got into the computer science by the extension programs. While I was at the school, I was a child, and then they came to my school and they present many years ago, like the 2000s, they present a course, so we learn how to use a computer, we learn how to be we learn technical skills, and that makes me realize that computer science, the computer field, not only
Você a perceber que
was possible.
computação era possível para mim. E foi assim que eu entrei na ciência da computação. Depois que eu já
vimos essa separação, né? Essa separação, eu estou pensando em inglês e português. I saw the gap. We have a little, not many women in the field, not many women in
eu vi a lacuna. Nós não tínhamos tantas mulheres na área e isso me incomodava. E na época eu fiz uma pergunta simples: quantas pessoas nós temos agora que estão tendo aulas de ciência da computação? Naquela época, a minha universidade nem tinha essa resposta. O sistema nem classificava por gênero. E foi assim que eu comecei a me tornar uma pesquisadora na área. Quando a gente queria saber quantas mulheres a gente tinha, eu tinha que ir nome por nome para saber, esse é uma mulher, isso não é. E como parte da minha pesquisa, nós também nos perguntávamos como que vamos trazer mais mulheres para cá. Nós tínhamos só 10% das estudantes mulheres. E na época, em 2018, eu acho que nós éramos só 18%. Então, a gente criou um projeto chamado Projeto Hadas, onde nós trazíamos mulheres para o campo, para as universidades, e fazíamos oficinas para poder ter mais inclusão. E nós tínhamos 3 dias de evento na universidade, era para a universidade inteira, mas
do it as a project others and talk about female women and the computer science history. And I was doing my research about it, and then this project, we have students from the high school who came here, and then what I want to say is was the first time a lot of female students for high school who say, I never even knew that was possible. I never even knew I could do computer science, or there is a course that I could do it. And this is just something I want to share. Because
Talita, yeah.
Yes.
Carry on.
Because sometimes it's not only about the lack of confidence. Sometimes it's the lack of information.
I think that's a really important point. And I love that story, your journey from your own experience. You are the perfect ambassador, really, for science, having been engaged. And I think there's several messages in an action plan there is go to the schools, find those women in class, give them the opportunity to experience. It comes back to that exposure to really understand the art of what's possible. And then I think that whole journey that you've been on, but it's all about practical experience and exposure, isn't it? It's all about the art of the possible, making it feel realistic. And, people like yourself are
pessoas como você são embaixadoras
science because somebody else was an ambassador for you, bringing you into the industry. And so there's some good actions and steps you might take from that. That's a really lovely example. Thank you for sharing. I have one last question for you on that, Talita, because presumably you are going to put an application in for the award. What would you do to build on your successes? What sort of ideas might you do to expand today?
I still think we need to get into the schools, it's not, I don't think like, oh, I'm going there, I'm going to teach how to program, how to code. I think we have to go a step back and actually show it how women, the successful women in the history and the present. So I think like it actually going to the schools and because in Brazil we have like most of women goes to health field, like yes, not goes to the STEM. So that's the action I want. Like we're gonna like build the bridge.
Build the bridge. I like that. That's really important. So I think it sounds like you're going to put an amazing plan in. Now I know we're lucky. In our session, we've been joined by, and I'm just looking to see whether Cassiano is still with us. I know he joined a little bit earlier, and I'm not sure. Yes, you are there, Cassiano, from CNPq. Thank you for joining this session online. We've had some really interesting ideas coming
Sessão
through.
online, nós tivemos ideias muito interessantes aqui, algumas práticas muito interessantes que nós estamos escutando.
For the audience here today about the awards. So I'd like to give people, maybe you'd like to say a few words and then give people the opportunity to come in perhaps and ask you a few questions about it.
Okay, Jane, good afternoon. Boa tarde a todos e a todas. Desculpa, eu demorei pouco para entrar na.
Good afternoon to all. I'm sorry I took a little long to get in the room. But like Jane said, I'm available to answer any type of questions, and I'm super happy that this dialogue was productive and that we had interesting ideas that were shared here. So I'm at your disposal for us to answer questions about the notice. I repeat, we have our subscriptions open. Our period of subscriptions is open, okay? Registrations.
Perfect. Thank you, Cassiano. So there's no wrong question. I think this is a great opportunity to have someone in the room that can answer all your burning questions. So go ahead and ask them. Let's see. Because we haven't not many people, Cassiano, in this room have applied in the past. So it's new to everyone really here. So let's just see. I've got a question for you to start us off, if that's right. And then let's come to everyone else. Cassiano, when we've looked at the application, it's putting in an action plan, a proposal. We've talked about not making it too large, making it very practical. What are you looking for? What does success look for? So perhaps give us an idea of the winning awards last year. What made them special and spectacular that they were the winners?
Well, okay. Bom, primeiro esclarecer a todas, né, que nós.
I would like to make it clear that us in CNPq, we analyze the requirements of our notice, okay? And the subscription needs to be according to this notice. So the first tip that I would give you is read with attention the notice for you not to forget a certain requirement that could compromise your subscription. If any of the requirements aren't fulfilled, we need to invalidate your subscription that sometimes are really good subscriptions. This issue related to the merit is not analyzed by us, it's evaluated by the judging committee, but we're not the ones that choose or define the criterias of the notice. And this is why I would like to call your attention for the criterias included in the notice, because sometimes you can have a really good proposal, a robust subscription, but if it doesn't attend all the requirements that we've included in the notice, it can be a proposal that is good in a few aspects, but it's not well scored in the specific criterias of our notice. In general terms, what I could say is, in first place, the institution needs to present clearly the results that they already had, the products that are offered and tools, opportunities that this institution offers for its for the public. This needs to be included in your subscription, and also present a good action plan according to what the institution proposes itself to add in its policies and its practices. So I believe that these things that I mentioned now would be the main worries that the institutions need to keep in mind when they're preparing their subscription.
Brilliant. Cassiano, that's some really good tips there. Thank you so much. So reading with attention, I took notice of that, because that is something so easy to miss, a really important component. Make sure you fulfill all of the requirements, so not missing anything. So again, getting someone to check before you submit your proposal is a really good way. And then I think it's evaluated by the judging committee. There was another question that's come up for you here. Who are the judging committee? How is that panel made up? So perhaps you could share a little bit about that.
Bom, é uma comissão formada só de mulheres, para começar. E são, assim,
That is composed only by women. We still didn't define the composition of this judging group, but they're usually managers of institutions that have a historical
não apenas na pesquisa, mas na gestão de instituições, né? Lembrando que
remembering that this committee is the same one that evaluates all categories in this award. So we need to have a diverse committee and that has expertise not only in management of the institutions, but also in research and
a gente também, claro, é uma comissão que a gente tenta que cubra
we have a committee that
de todas as regiões do país, então a gente
comes from all the regions in our country. We want to have representatives from all regions, south, north, center, east, southeast, northeast.
A área de atuação, né? A gente convida pesquisadoras da área de exatas, de humanas.
And we try to find researchers in specific areas in
a gente tem uma cobertura aí
biology, mathematics, health.
A formação.
So we can have a complete table related to the origin of these judges.
Excellent. So Cassiano, describing that, I can imagine that some of the awardees in the future, so from this year, they may become panel members in the future because of their experience, potentially. Renata, you've got a question, I think, or you've got a point you'd like to raise, your hand is up. Please go ahead. Don't know, Lucy. Oh,
yes, I'd like to ask something to Cassiano. Cassiano, primeiro agradecer, né, porque tem alguém do CNPq aqui presente com a gente, então acho que isso é muito
From
importante.
the CNPq, it's so important to be around us. It's a good thing. I was taking a look at the public notice, and I graduated before 2009, so it would be something trajectory. And then just scanning the public notice, I saw that you're going to evaluate the works, and you mentioned research, right? So generally, when we give courses regarding inclusion or extension projects, I do my extension related to research, and it is quite complicated because we're trying to build a policy of inclusion, and at the same time we're dealing with research. So in my part, for example, I'm trying to include women inside the university. I was one of the winners of the Future Scientist from CNPq. And we are not worried about research. We are worried about the numbers of inclusion. And following this reasoning, for example, if I enroll and try to win this prize, I don't have research related to that, but I do have posts regarding my work. I have the awards that I won as well. Is this going to be taken into consideration, or are we talking about an evaluation via articles or research? Thank you.
Good question, Renata. Over to you, Cassiano.
Ok, Renata, obrigado pela pergunta.
Thank you, Renata, for the question.
Bom, como eu falei,
well, this is like I said earlier,
do mérito e
this
do peso que
matter
dado,
of merit
ao trabalho que é apresentado
and how much does the work worth, it's about the committee judgment. They're going to take care of it.
Como eu já falei.
And as I mentioned earlier as well,
eu tô com o edital aberto aqui.
I'm just opening the public notice here, just a second.
Então, por exemplo,
so for example, in the category stimuli and trajectory, in the first criteria, it talks about the relevance of the scientific production. So this criteria is clearly connected to the production regarding articles and so on in the field of work of the candidate. So you said that you have no articles in your field of work, but whatever you have regarding scientific production that is not just an article, it is going to be taken into consideration. And the other items, they discuss other topics. But of course, you can see that the first criteria, A and B, because B, you have the impact of the area, the field of work. You can see that they worth the same. So this is going to be what is going to compose your final grade. So regarding scientific production, what is expected is something related like articles or other forms of scientific production. So in your case, we would need to analyze your contribution so that we can set these into other criteria. So, in my opinion, as somebody that follows these judging processes, so the committee will decide that afterwards.
Excellent. That's really helpful. Renata, is that useful for you to go away and think about how you might show what it is that you do that isn't necessarily an article or the research side? Good. Okay. Let's just see. We've got a few more minutes. So it's worth. Yes, Renata, come back in. Do.
É difícil.
It is hard because when we are trying to build these things in general, I mean like building these policies, the affirmative ones, trying to do these works. For example, now we have subscribed one article that is about to be accepted. It's been judged right now. So we do not have these results, but we do have data. So I think that the following activities, sitting and, well, I will need to write articles so that I can be a candidate like for a prize like this one. So in case we don't have this document, apparently we won't make it. So I will also need to invest this individual project as well. Here I'm representing not only the institution, but my projects, like my interests. So CNPq, please try to think about something for us. I am inside a project which is called Meninas na Ciência, Girls in Science. And but in order to compete in a prize like this one, we would need further production. Thank you.
Excellent. So some food for thought. That's a very useful conversation about what you might need to be able to demonstrate for the award, but also the opportunity for how you might expand in the future if you were successful. So it sounds like there's a bit of work to do, Renata, when you go back into the business after this meeting. But thank you, Cassiano, for sharing that. That's really helpful, I think, for everyone that's in this meeting. So we've got, as I say, just a couple of perhaps opportunity for another point to be raised, another thought or question for Cassiano whilst we have his experience here. I know there was a question about, are there women professionals from CNPq? I think, Lisa, the answer, Cassiano has probably answered that they come from, they're not necessarily CNPq, but they are professionals in the industry that they are finding that can come and sit on the panel. But Lisa, do you want to go ahead? Please do.
Yes, I have a question. Vou falar em português, Cassiano. Eu gostaria de concorrer com a minha instituição na categoria Mérito Institucional.
In the category of... So I was reading the public notice and I don't know if I can accomplish all the requirements. So I would like to know, is there maybe a provision so that we can know when the public notice is going to be published next year, since this year I don't think that I will have enough time. So I would like to prepare myself for next year. So the expectation, well, there is one. I believe that the next edition, well, it is going to be held. The prize was such a pleasant surprise. Last year was a success. We didn't have lots of expectations regarding what people would want it, and well, people did. So it was something that brought huge interest. So hopefully it's going to be annual, but it depends on the availability of resources, maintenance, partnerships that are established throughout the time. So I can't guarantee anything for you. But I think that the probability is high so that we will have new editions of the prize. So I suggest that you and your institution do this homework so that you can present something that is more robust next year. And in case you don't have time to do this year. Thank you so much, Cassiano. Could you share any statistics?
Do ano passado, para a gente ter uma ideia da
Like,
competitividade.
Oh, Lisa, I think you were giving an example and then you disappeared. I don't know whether you can come back in and just finish that off. Could you give an examples like you said? So I wonder.
Actually, I did a question. I asked for some statistics, some numbers.
Yes.
And if Cassiano could give us.
Perfect. Yes. So, and statistics and numbers, you're talking about them from a perspective of the number of organizations or success rates. What statistics would you be looking at in particular?
I would like to know, if possible, the number of the candidates, how many institutions.
Okay. Yeah. Who's applied? How many? Yes.
Cassiano, you are on mute.
There you are.
Eu estou pesquisando aqui no nosso banco de dados quantas
I'm taking a look at our database, the first edition. Just a second. I will share it with you in a second. So regarding this topic, I'm sorry to interrupt because this is a question that was made in the breakout rooms. People wanted to know if it's possible to access the candidatures of the people who were awarded last year. So they didn't find it. Can you help us with that?
Eu vou verificar também se nós disponibilizamos.
I will take a look at that, if we have made this public or not.
Imagino que também não tenha disponibilidade.
I believe that not. This is not available.
Essa categoria é
This category
onde a nossa parceria com o British
is
Council se
where our partnership with British Council takes light. So I believe that the British Council has not shared this as well. And I need to check if we can actually do this or not. So I'll just check if I can share this with you or not. Just a second.
Okay, thank you for doing that, Cassiano. And if we don't have all that available, we have everyone's contact details, so we can make that available post the call as well. So whilst Cassiano is looking at that, we are coming to the close of this session. This has been really interesting. We've heard some really good ideas for actions of moving forward. We've answered, and Cassiano, can't thank you enough for coming in. You've answered some really important questions, and also the opportunity for future years if this year is a year too early in preparation for putting in an application for next year. So we'd really like to encourage you to move forward. Timing is, of course, short. It's a reminder that there's just 13 days to get your submission in. So please get back into your businesses, use the tools that we've given, use all of the information that's been shared by CNPq in the award. It's all in the chat. It's there for you to access from this course. So make sure now you get a chance to download that. And I'm sure, Lucy, I'm right in saying it'll be going out to people anyway, that they'll get access to it.
We will email you all after the event with the presentation, attendance certificates, all of the links and handouts that have been shared today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy, for doing that. So I'm just going to check with Adalgisa if there is anything you would like to say at this point.
Não, só agradecer imensamente.
I'd like to thank you hugely. Thank you all for spending this afternoon with us.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know that we have some of the British Council teams. I know that we have Marcella, I think you're with us still. I don't know whether you would like to say a word, and if not, I can do it on your behalf.
Jane, I think Marcella has joined to support the interpretation, but she's helping deliver the on-site.
Fine. So I'm going to just thank the British Council for making this opportunity possible. And we've been delighted to work alongside the British Council. But of course, the British Council couldn't have done it without their partner, CNPq. And we've been really thrilled and delighted that we've had Cassiano and your team participate in the workshop and in this virtual space as well. And so a huge thank you for making this possible and bringing that awareness to women in science and research. And it's such an important topic, and we're really looking forward to having a lot of applications and some successes from the people around the table here today. So Cassiano, I'm going to leave you with the last word, if you'd like to say anything to our audience.
Bom, primeiro agradecer mais uma vez.
Well, I would like to thank you one more time for inviting me, and I would like to congratulate for the event and for sharing these awards. I would like to reinforce that the subscriptions, they are open, so you can enroll at any time. I posted here on the chat we had 27 candidatures, and I hope that we can have even more applications and that more institutions, they become even more engaged regarding this topic, like in the policies and the practices. Everything that is connected to women participation in research. And I would like to remind you that we are here in case you have any questions. So there is our website. So you can email your doubts, any questions. It's not instant.
Agradeço aí a participação de todos. Espero ter.
I would also like to thank everybody's participation, for contributing. We're at your disposal. And I wish good luck for whoever's going to participate in the award. Hugs and good afternoon.
Thank you, Cassiano. And it leaves me just to thank the people behind the scenes that have made this happen as well. Lucy, people don't realize just how much work goes into providing and making sure all the links and everything works. So super thank you, Lucy, for doing that. And I know being supported by Ramon as well today from the British Council, but it's a lot of work. And of course, Adalgisa for joining me and being our, working alongside, and our translators who've done a brilliant job of keeping us all in line and all understanding. Thank you so much for that. And of course, to our participants, you stayed with us really delighted. You've given us some really good food for thought, and we are so looking forward to seeing your applications. Thank you all. Let you get on with your day. God bless. Thank you.
Obrigada, Jane. Obrigada a todos e todas.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, everybody.